You keep thinking the problem is the workload, but the poison is usually personal. Toxic coworkers do not just annoy you, they slowly train your nervous system. You start rehearsing harmless emails, rereading messages, and feeling guilty for normal boundaries. That exhaustion is not random, and it is definitely not proof you are weak. It usually begins with small disrespect disguised as personality, pressure, or office culture. They interrupt you, copy your ideas, exclude you, then act surprised when you react. Then the story quietly flips, and suddenly reaction becomes the official problem. Most people think workplace toxicity is about difficult personalities, but control is the deeper issue. The useful truth is this: toxic coworkers study what unsettles you, then keep touching it. They may not plan every move, but they absolutely notice what gets results. If guilt makes you explain things, they learn guilt is an easy handle. If urgency makes you panic, they create urgency around things that were never urgent. Before long, you are performing emotional labor for people who contribute almost none. And the worst part is how normal it can look from outside. A jealous coworker rarely arrives wearing jealousy on their face or saying it directly. They arrive smiling, helpful, curious, and weirdly interested in your mistakes and weak spots. They praise you in meetings, then question your judgment in private afterward. They volunteer support, then disappear when their part actually matters most there. They share concern about your stress, then quietly become the reason for it. This is why toxic workplaces feel crazy, making instead of clearly abusive. The aggression is often socially polished, professionally deniable, and emotionally targeted precisely. You feel hurt, but you struggle to prove anything concrete at work today. That uncertainty is exactly what lets manipulative coworkers keep operating without consequences. They live inside gray areas because gray areas keep you self-doubting constantly. And when you doubt yourself, you become easier to manage for them. That is why the first power shift is not confronting them louder. It is seeing the pattern faster than your fear can distort it. When someone repeatedly leaves you confused, there's usually a benefit in your confusion. Confused people explain more, reveal more, tolerate more, and wait longer patiently. Clear people become expensive to manipulate, and toxic coworkers hate expensive targets. So notice what happens right after you succeed, speak up, or get attention. Some coworkers turn colder the moment your value becomes visible to everyone. They do not want excellence destroyed, they want your confidence dented instead. A confident employee is harder to isolate, bait, and quietly discredit publicly. That discrediting often starts with tiny comments that sound harmless enough initially. Maybe they say you are sensitive, intense, difficult, defensive, or hard to read. Maybe they joke about your standards whenever your standards expose their laziness. Maybe they call you intimidating because they cannot comfortably control access to you. That word is often punishment disguised as feedback inside the office culture. It pressures you to soften yourself until their insecurity stops hurting less. And if you do soften, they usually take that as permission granted. This is why over-explaining at work becomes such a dangerous habit quickly. You think you are being clear, but they hear vulnerability and availability. Every extra sentence gives them more material to twist later against you. Every defensive explanation confirms they can pull you into unnecessary trials again. And toxic coworkers love private courtrooms where they act to judge and witness. They accuse, imply, sigh, pause, and wait for you to fill silence. The silence feels unbearable because your brain wants resolution more than protection. But the need to be understood is often what gives them leverage. Not every misunderstanding deserves clarification, especially when misunderstanding is their favorite weapon. Pay close attention to patterns, not isolated moments with plausible excuses attached. Anyone can have a bad day, but repeated confusion is a strategy. Anyone can miss a message, but repeated omission reveals selective respect patterns. Anyone can be blunt, but repeated humiliation means they enjoy imbalance there. The more consistent the pattern, the less personal benefit of doubt deserves. Here is the trap many decent people fall into at work daily. They assume professionalism means endless patience with people who weaponize professionalism itself. So they keep being understanding while the other person keeps being strategic. That is not maturity, That is self-abandonment in office clothes, sometimes entirely. Real professionalism includes limits, documentation, distance, and emotional self-control when pressure rises. It does not require you to be endlessly warm with someone undermining you. It requires you to stay steady while they search for openings everywhere. And those openings usually appear when you are emotional, rushed, or eager to fix things. So the second power shift is slowing your responses down considerably. First, not passive aggression, not icy performance, just deliberate pacing with boundaries intact. You do not need to answer every loaded comment in real time. You do not need to decode every strange look or sudden silence. And you definitely do not need to rescue awkwardness they created on purpose. Sometimes your strongest move is a short answer that does not bleed emotion. That can sound like noted, understood, I will handle my part, or nothing. Short responses protect you from giving manipulators extra handles to grab onto. They also force the interaction back into reality instead of emotional fog. Manipulators thrive when conversations become slippery, personal, and impossible to pin down. Clear language removes oxygen from that kind of performance very quickly there. Another quiet protection is documenting more than you think you need initially. Keep the email, summarize the meeting, confirm the decision, save the timeline. Documentation is not paranoia when patterns keep being denied later repeatedly anyway. It is memory with receipts, and toxic people hate receipts deeply always. They prefer emotional arguments because emotional arguments leave fewer clean footprints behind. Written summaries change the balance because facts stay visible after moods change. If someone constantly twists live conversations, move important things into writing early. You are not being difficult, you are refusing disappearing reality anymore now. And now we get to the mistake that costs good people the most. They try to win fairness from someone who is benefiting from unfairness. They bring evidence, logic, good faith, and sincerity to a control game. But control games are not solved by better explanations alone at all. They are solved by reducing access to your emotional energy consistently first. That means fewer private disclosures and fewer reactive explanations altogether from you. It means noticing who always leaves conversations feeling heavier, smaller, or dirtier. And it means treating that pattern as information, not a puzzle to solve. You do not need perfect certainty before adjusting how available you are. You only need enough evidence that contact keeps costing you clarity consistently. This matters because toxic coworkers often train you to ignore your own data. They want you debating tone while they keep repeating the same pattern. They want you focused on whether you seemed rude after weeks of provocation. They want you auditing your reaction instead of their behavior repeatedly happening. Once you see that move, your recovery gets much faster afterward naturally. You stop asking whether you overreacted and start asking what got repeated. That question is stronger because patterns reveal intention better than isolated words. And once the pattern is visible, your response can become boringly consistent. Boring is powerful because manipulators feed on surprise, chaos, and emotional openings. They want a scene, a confession, a breakdown, or a desperate defense. What unsettles them most is calm repetition with no emotional donation attached. I am keeping this professional becomes a shield when said without anger. Please send that in writing becomes a filter against verbal distortion later. I am focused on the task redirects the conversation back to observable ground. I am not available for this discussion right now closes access without a speech. And sometimes the strongest message is ending the exchange before it turns personal. Leave the chat, stop replying, return later, or involve the right person. Distance is not weakness when someone keeps using closeness as a weapon. This is especially important with coworkers who act sweet around witnesses nearby. Public charm can make you doubt yourself more than private cruelty ever. Because if everyone else sees someone pleasant, you assume the problem is perception. But many toxic coworkers perform kindness as reputation management, not character consistently. They need the office to trust their image before they test your sanity. So never measure harm only by how charming they seem publicly elsewhere. Measure it by the after effect they leave in your body instead daily. tight chest, mental replay, shaky focus, sudden guilt, dread before meetings tomorrow. Your body often recognizes manipulation before your mind feels allowed to name it. That does not make you dramatic, it makes you accurately affected by. And when you stop shaming your own response, your clarity returns quicker. Now there is one more shift that changes everything at work completely. Stop trying to be seen as nice by people committed to misreading you. Be clear instead, because clear survives where nice gets slowly exploited first. Nice still hopes fairness will arrive if you explain yourself beautifully enough. Clear knows some people understood you perfectly and disliked the limit anyway. Nice chases harmony even after harmony has been weaponized against it already. Clear protects truth, time, focus, and access to your energy every day. That identity shift matters because toxic coworkers target roles, not just reactions. If you keep showing up as the fixer, the peacemaker, or the explainer, they will keep handing you messes that steal your strength and blur responsibility. But when you become the person who notices patterns and changes access, the game stops feeling mystical and starts looking embarrassingly predictable to you. You see the bait earlier, the script earlier, and the trap earlier. You stop volunteering your peace to people who have not earned proximity. And something quiet but important happens when you do that consistently enough. Their behavior may not improve, but your internal collapse begins to end. You stop carrying their projections home like they are unpaid overtime daily. You stop replaying meetings where they twisted your words and stole the mood. You stop treating every cold tone as an emergency requiring immediate repair. And that is real power at work, not dominance, not theatrics, not revenge. Real power is keeping your self-respect where manipulation cannot rent space anymore. It is knowing who someone is without needing them to admit it. It is responding to patterns instead of begging words to feel safe. It is letting your calm become more persuasive than their performance ever. And once you learn that, toxic coworkers lose their favorite doorway into you. Because the doorway was never your kindness, your talent, or your professionalism. The doorway was the hope that clarity would come from the wrong people. Close that doorway and the room inside you gets quieter again finally. You can still be decent, collaborative, and calm without becoming emotionally available. You can still do excellent work without volunteering for psychological warfare afterward. You can still be respected without explaining yourself to every threatened person nearby. And if this hits hard, it is because your instincts were never broken. They were just buried under repetition, pressure, mixed signals, and forced self-doubt. Now you can trust what the pattern has been showing you all along. Protect your clarity, shorten your explanations, document the facts, and hold your pace. Let them keep performing if they need that to survive the office. You do not need to join the performance to keep your place. You only need to see clearly, respond cleanly, and stop feeding the pattern. And when you do, your power stops leaking into people who never deserved it.